Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu. Today we are going to talk about a series of parts which refers to the stories of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Stories that will talk about his childhood up to when he was last seen on this earth. So for today's video, we're going to talk about Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's childhood, part one. And it will go up to when he was a young adult, around 35 years old. So Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is the last and final messenger of Islamic faith. Islamic faith started with Prophet Adam and ended with the seal of the prophets, Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the greatest man that have ever lived on this earth. He was born in a city called Mecca, right here. Currently, the city is in a country called Saudi Arabia. He was born in a very noble family. This family is the descendants of Prophet Ishmael. Prophet Ishmael, son of Prophet Abraham. As we all know, Prophet Ishmael and Abraham came to this location of Mecca and they built the Kaaba. This at your left side is an image of the Kaaba from a movie, but we would be able to see here how it looked like back then, as there were like small homes around it, and people would come to visit it. And after it was built, uh, people were following the wrong path and would put idols inside the Kaaba to worship. On the right side is a photo of Mecca. It's a real photo from the 1920s, where you have this mosque around it. So Prophet Muhammad SAW was born in a city like this, a city where people were lost, and at the top of that is one of most of his family members were also lost because they were the chiefs of this city. They were part of a tribe called the Quraysh. They were the chiefs of the city, and they would lead these worships, these acts of worship. But luckily, Prophet Muhammad SAW didn't fall through that path. He was born at the year 570. This that you see right here is the house which he was born. Now, the way it looks like, you might think that this looks too modern, but you have to understand that this is not the actual building. They just renovated the building, but this is the exact location where he was born. Prophet Muhammad SAW was a descendant of Prophet Ishmael, whom amongst his descendants is the well-known Hashim. There was a man called Hashim, and whenever people talk about the family of Muhammad SAW, they will often call them the Hashimi because they come from this man. Banu Hashim means from Hashim. So Hashim had descendants, one of them called Abu Muttalib. Abu Muttalib, at this era where Muhammad SAW was born, he was the current chief of Mecca, the chief of the Quraysh. Abu Muttalib had 10 sons, and here we are showing you three of them. You have Abdullah, who is the father of Muhammad SAW. But sadly, he didn't get to see his father because when he was in his mother's womb, his father passed away. And when that happened, Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was under the care of his father's brother, which is Abu Talib. Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam would be with his mother until he was around 5 to 6 years old when they came from a travel. His mom fell ill and passed away on the road. And that was the exact location where he was buried. So Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam didn't get to live long with his parents. He early on became an orphan, but he was taken care of by Abu Talib, his uncle, who had many children, and Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam would grow up with these people. He also had an uncle called Abbas, who was very friendly with him. But if we consider the other brothers of these three, like Abu Lahab, Abu Jahl, and so on, who were idol worshippers, they respected Muhammad SAW because of his character, but they didn't share the same point of view about life, as Muhammad SAW didn't agree on worshipping idols. And these people felt uneasy whenever they see him around them. So Muhammad SAW, when he was a baby, he needed milk, and they had to find a lady who would provide that for him. And her name is Alimat Sadia. He spent most of his childhood at her house and would often play with the kids there. And when he started coming there, a lot of miracles happened. One of those miracles was that the crops that were growing there would grow very fast. People noticed. The other thing they noticed is that whenever a sheep would give birth, it will always give birth to twins. So this is all the blessings of Allah to those people through Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, which shows how important of a person he is to this world. But also a weird incident happened when he was a child. One day an angel came and Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam all of a sudden was laying on the ground. This angel came as a human form. The kids around him were scared. They were running, they were screaming, saying, Muhammad is dead, Muhammad is dead, because he was laying down like that, not moving. But what the angel was doing is that he was opening Sallallahu chest. Now, it's not like surgery, like cutting, but let's see it as a light around his chest and darkness coming out of it, because the angel was removing darkness. And this is something that we have to pay attention, because Allah is showing us here that we human beings, by default, we were created with this darkness. This darkness is what makes us sin, what makes us imperfect. And Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was going to be the best of mankind, the role model, a prophet of Allah. And to be a prophet, you have to have certain characteristics. And these characteristics can only be fulfilled if darkness is removed. So the angel will remove darkness from Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and make him a pure human being. And after that, he woke up not knowing what was happening as he was a child. At the age of 12, Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam would change his habits. As a kid, he would used to play, but now he would start thinking like an adult and doing important things. He would go to his uncle Abu Talib to help him with his work as a merchant, but also with the sheeps and the, every every other business that he was occupying. So here we are advising the youth. Playing is good, it's part of our childhood, but you have to reduce the playing slowly and try to do things that are more important because you cannot play all your life. Sometimes you have to develop this sense of adulthood inside of you mentally. And it's not about always working, but spending more time understanding life and learning through it.
Okay? Mm. Is it right? It's blinking right now. Yeah, that's fine. I know, that's good. That's good. It's just taking it. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. So, online, can you still hear me? Okay. So, last time we talked about Prophet Muhammad's childhood, but we only took like a small portion. Okay. So we talked about his genealogy, and we said that he is the descendant of Prophet Ishmael. We talked about his tribe, Quraysh, which is occupied by many of his uncles currently, is occupied by Abu Talib after his father died. And we said that Prophet Muhammad was an orphan, so now he's under the care of Abu Talib, and he spent all his childhood with him until his adulthood. We also talked about his birth and early childhood, how he was with Alimat Sadia when he was in her house, the miracles that happened there. But now he's growing up. Now he's a 12-year-old, I would say. He's going to walk with Abu Talib with his journeys. Abu Talib was a merchant, and he would travel to many places. So Prophet Muhammad at a very young age would become an adult, I would say, mentally, because he's doing what grown-ups do, which is work, and also talking to adults. So this is a very good lesson for us. Although we're young, we also have to try to think like adults. Playing is good, but there has to be a limit. So that's the lesson that you can learn from them. So today we're going to talk about when he was traveling with Abu Talib. They went to a place where they met a monk called Bahira. He saw something that we will talk about. We're also going to talk about Muhammad and Khadija, and we will end by saying how the Kaaba was rebuilt when it had like problems, infrastructural problems. So Muhammad and Abu Talib traveled from here in Mecca to all the way here to Syria. And he's a merchant. So as a merchant, you want to buy stuff to sell it. Now, no airport existed at this time. They were traveling with camels, and they were also walking. So you can imagine this like a 3-month travel. And if you're a kid, you will say, this is tiring. I can't do this. But just to tell you how Prophet Muhammad was serious about like work and how important it was and how important it is to think like an adult. You have to suffer sometimes to benefit from life. So they went to a place in Syria called Busra. It's a city where many merchants gather to buy goods and stuff. And when they went there, they encountered a monk. He's called Bahira. He's a Christian. And he had this large monastery where he would invite the merchants. Now, in Arab culture, when you're the youngest one, because at this time, Prophet Muhammad wasn't adolescent. So when you're a young person, usually when the adults are meeting like chiefs, you, the young person, are going to stay behind and gather and look on the luggages. Like you're going to survey the stuff that they brought so that the adults can go and talk to the chief. But here, the monk was different because he was looking at Muhammad when he was young. and he saw something. And because of that, he invited him and Abu Talib to come eat a meal, which was unusual. So they called Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, Abu Talib wanted to know why this gesture, why did he do that? And he told to Abu Talib that when Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sitting under a tree, like looking at your luggages, I saw something happen. I saw that the tree branches were moving on their own, and they were creating some kind of shade for him. And the monk, he studied the gospel, so he knows that there are some phenomena that tells that this guy is a prophet. So he saw that, but he also saw when Prophet Muhammad was walking, there was a very small cloud on his top that was protecting him from the heat. So there was shade following him. Those are miracles that not everybody can have. And he explained to Abu Talib that you have to protect this boy, because in the future he's going to become someone great. So those are the early signs of prophethood that was revealed to Abu Talib, which is why he paid a lot of attention to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as a young merchant, he met a lot of people. He talked to a lot of people, and he was a very honest guy, a very trustworthy guy. In Mecca, everybody will say Muhammad is trustworthy because of his behavior, his interaction with people. So he showed this at a very young age, and that is something we have to develop as Muslims. Now, there was a lady called Khadija. At this time, Khadija was one of the richest ladies in Mecca. She would buy merchandise and sell it, and sometimes she would need someone to help her with the merchandise. So she would call Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam because she saw that this guy is trustworthy. He has good behavior. I can trust this guy with my merchandise. Now the business went well, and there was a miracle there because whenever she sells, everybody buys it. That's a very reassuring thing. And Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, with his behavior, she ended up wanting him as a spouse. So she asked Abu Talib the hand of Muhammad. Abu Talib told it to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam agreed. And then he went to tell to his uncle Hamza ibn Abi Talib. He's the brother of Abu Talib, and they all agreed. And then they got married. Now this marriage is something unusual, because at this time Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was 25 years old. Khadija was 40. That is something that many people in America would say, that can't be, like, why not at the same age? But that doesn't matter, because a human being is not defined by age. I told you guys, when it comes to being mature, it's not when you're 18 or 15. People are mature at a very young age. The age doesn't tell much, but it's the intellect that tells that if you're a grown-up or if you're a child. They got married with the will of Allah, and she was a very good spouse to him. She's rich, but although that, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam behaved as an adult. What does that mean? The husband has to take care of the wife. Even though she's rich, you have to take care of your wife and your family. And through this marriage, they had 5 kids. As we told you guys last time, Muhammad was born at 570. Khadija here, born at 560. That's might be a mistake. Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. She's born at 567. No, that has to be a mistake. Because she was 40 when she married. So they had 6 children. The eldest one was a boy called Qasim. Now, in the story of the Prophet ﷺ, you might not hear much of his sons, because they passed away when they were babies. Qasim, he passed away when he was like 3 years old. He was very, very young. And he had a daughter called Zainab, another daughter called Ruqayya, Kulthum, and Fatima. Everybody knows Fatima. She's the wife of Sayyidina Ali. And he had another son called Abdullah. But unfortunately, he died very young, 4 years old. So you can see the pain that Prophet Muhammad lived through his life. First, he's an orphan. He never saw his dad. He didn't grow up enough to be with his mom. Her mom died when he was very, very young. And here, all of his sons passed away very early. Even with he had another marriage after Khadija. He had one son, Ibrahim. He died when he was 2 years old. So he never got to live with a son who fully grown up in his life. And that's the pain that he consumed. And he was patient because every pain is from Allah. And it's a way to develop patience. Because we all belong to Allah. If you have something, you lose it. Don't say, oh, why is life like this? Accept, know that Allah is the owner of what you have. And He can take it whenever He wants. Now, time skip from Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. From 25, now he's 35 years old. And there was a time where there was an issue that happened with the Kaaba. I told you guys that the Kaaba was already there. It was built by Ibrahim and Ismail alayhi salam. But after some years, the people who occupied Mecca started putting idols inside it. They worship the Kaaba because there are idols inside back in that time. And now